Good afternoon. Welcome to our seminar on real estate during COVID. I'm Lisa Bergeron with William Raveis Real Estate on Cape Cod. And with me today is Frank Marola, mortgage broker, also with William Raveis. Hi, Frank.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And also joining us today is Tim Hodgman with Lattanzi. He's an attorney with Lattanzi that has several offices here on the Outer Cape. Hi, Tim.
Hey, Lisa. Thanks for putting this on today. It's a great idea.
You're welcome. I will share my screen briefly for everyone to just see our contact information. In case you have questions, you can contact us. And we'll get started. We're also live on Facebook. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat box and we'll answer them for you. So Tim, Frank, and I are here today to go over what has changed during this pandemic. And we'll offer some insight into how we're doing things now, what's changed. I'll start first with a little update on the market. And although the market seemed to really have no activity for the few weeks, March through the third week in April, we have definitely been seeing an upswing. The data shows that on Google Trends, if you search on what's been trending, homes for sale has been the highest it's ever been since they started keeping track of that data, which I think was in the early 2000s. So there's definitely been some pent up demand. And I think mortgages have been up, Frank, the last few weeks. Steady.
Yeah, purchase applications have risen as well as refinances because rates are so low right now. So that's helped a lot of people. And I can attest to your numbers. I've sent a couple pre-approval letters for borrowers, and I heard from the agents that on some of these offers there was other offers, multiple bids. So we are seeing a tremendous amount of activity and an increase in activity just in the last 3 weeks or so.
That's great. And as I said, although it dipped, I think there's definitely pent up market demand because now that people are spending so much time at home, 24/7 working from home, and thinking, well, maybe this is a viable option for the future, working from home, and where do I want to spend my time? What are my housing needs? So many people don't have backyards, didn't have big kitchens, found that the living spaces that they're sharing with everyone maybe need to be a little more comfortable. And with that, the data also shows that there's a website called showing.com that has also showed that in the last 2 weeks, the showings have been really just on an upward swing. So with that, I think people are definitely reassessing what their needs are and when they have their free time, what do they want to be doing? Do they want to be near the ocean, near the ponds, where they can have some sports and sailing and, water sports, sailing, kayaking, what have you. So with that, the data that I wanted to point out, that was just in the last week, we've had this is Barnstable County, 144 new listings. 120 went contingent, which means they've had accepted offers. 117 went pending, and this is just in the last week, which means they went to the last stage of the buying process, the purchase and sale. So that's great news. With all that news, that means that we are set on a course for September and August and September to be a really high closings. So with that, I will ask some questions of our mortgage broker. What does that mean for us? If you're not local to Cape Cod or you're out of state, how do you do a mortgage virtually now? How is that changing?
Yeah, great question. And the good news is our company, William Raveis Mortgage, has been set up to provide a virtual mortgage to clients for several years now. And what I mean by that is clients can apply for their mortgage online through a link that I send them. I can speak to them on the phone. I can email back and forth with borrowers. We've had many borrowers come to Barnstable, Provincetown, Outer Cape, Upper Cape, from Texas, California, all over the United States. Clients can upload the documents securely via a secure mortgage portal. So a lot of what we do is done over the, fax, email, computer, phone, internet, that type of thing. And what's interesting is I actually had some clients last week that I met on Zoom on this platform. So they were first-time buyers. They wanted to just kind of see my face and kind of get together. So we met on Zoom, talked about their income and their qualifications. So that's an option as well. And then if a borrower does want to meet face-to-face, we have local offices all over Cape Cod where we could arrange that as well. So it's been business as usual for the mortgage industry in terms of the pandemic and working from home and being able to assist clients.
Has the time changed or anything? To get
We have seen the appraisals take a little bit longer, and that's because some of the appraisers have come down with COVID, so there's less appraisers. They want to protect the appraisers. There's been some guideline changes where sometimes an appraiser now will not have to go into the home where they could risk, contracting the virus. So there's been some drive-by appraisals, but we have seen with the pandemic that the length of time of appraisals has increased, probably from like 2 weeks to no more than 3 weeks, but there's been a slight increase in that. We're trying to factor that into our turn times and when we set our dates for closing.
Well, that's good. That reminds me that we're seeing houses go under still in the 90% of asking price if they're priced right. So that's good news as well. And that brings me to the next point, which is if we do get an accepted offer, how have things changed with COVID for riders on purchase and sales? Or Tim, can you speak to that?
Sure, definitely. So, well, first let me just say, this is hopefully going to be past us soon. But as of today, this is sort of how we're advising clients. So the first thing is the mortgage contingency clause. That's really important here. If a buyer's worried about losing their job or getting their mortgage, setting that date close to the closing date is important. It gives them the most amount of time to terminate the contract if their mortgage does fall through or they do lose their job. And then our Real Estate Bar Association has also recommended a rider that we add to all contracts now. It's really for any COVID-related issue that might come up. So it could be a loss of job, it could be a sickness, it could be even if your mortgage contingency date has passed, and you lose your job and the mortgage falls through. It still allows you to terminate the contract. So it really gives you a lot of options if something unforeseen does come up.
I think we're also adding some COVID language to the offers that we're putting in through William Raveis. They've also added something. So things have changed, but things are also still the same process of looking. Right now, we're seeing most of the looking being done virtual. We're having virtual open houses. I think there were 9 last weekend, and there's more planned for this weekend. And I think each week going forward, we'll see more and more of those. Every house that has come on the market, we're doing virtual walkthroughs, either private or with the Matterport, and posting them with the listing. So that's been really, really helpful. I think a couple of weeks ago, we were seeing typically we would see the average buyer would see about 9 houses before they'd make an offer. And now that they're able to see them all virtually and ask questions or do a FaceTime walkthrough with the client, and ask specific questions, we're seeing them actually only go into approximately 3 houses before making an offer. So that's really reduced a lot of traffic. And I've been fortunate, the showings I have done have been in vacant houses and condos. So, and we've of course changed our approach with that. If nobody's home, then that's very easy. We just go in, wipe things down. One person goes in at a time. If there is somebody living in the property, the sellers are opening the doors, opening the windows so that buyers can go in without touching anything. We bring masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, and sanitary wipes to each showing. And mostly we also only allow people that are the decision makers to go in, and other people can wait in the car. So that's changed, but it's also gotten better for sellers. They're still getting their properties out, seen, shown, made offers on, and so we're still doing business. We're getting that done. So I think we'll go back to Frank. And you said you actually met the person on Zoom. Is that how you've been using the platform?
Yeah, we have several of our weekly office meetings are on Zoom, and it's a great platform because you get to see everyone's face and have your everybody has their time and they have to speak about a certain topic, which is nice. And for buyers, I met some buyers on Zoom, and we were able to just kind of chat back and forth, get their questions answered, talk to them about what they need to do to be pre-approved, during COVID-19. And it's been a great platform. It's been a great way to utilize technology to stay in touch with people. And I did want to jump back to your question earlier about dates and whatnot. So right now, May 19th, if somebody did want to, be in a condo or a home or vacation property for July 4th, we can certainly make that happen for borrowers that are qualified. So that's the next major holiday is, on Cape Cod is July 4th. And then there's also a lot of activity for people to, purchase between them and Labor Day, and then, use the properties in the fall as well. So, as long as the borrower is well qualified and well prepared to submit paperwork, we could have them in for the July 4th holiday.
That's great. I can attest to seeing people. There's been a huge amount of people coming onto the Cape for the last week, I would say. And because I live in Wellfleet, where many of the homes are only occupied during the summer, it looks like a lot of the second homeowners, a lot from Orleans all the way to Provincetown, are coming in for Memorial Day weekend, since they're not allowed to. Looks like everybody's here. And a lot of them were at the hardware store yesterday. I couldn't find parking space. So.
If I read it correctly, I think the state guidelines have the beaches open on the 25th. Certain guidelines with self-distancing yourself from the next, party on the beach, but I believe as of the 25th, the beaches are, open, not too many restrictions, which is great news.
Right. Yeah. So that brings me to another question. When we usually go through the process of first the offers accepted, then the appraiser, then the mortgage application, and then the things that we have to do to get to closing are like smoke detectors, and sometimes we have to have condo docs that are signed, which right now probably can't be. Tim, can you speak to how to get those things done now, or how your office is doing those?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So, the towns are actually doing a great job, reviewing things virtually, meeting virtually. Title V for the septic exams, those have been moving right along. We haven't really had an issue with, those holding up a closing. Governor Baker has enacted an order to allow the smoke detector test to take place after the closing. This shifts the burden from the seller, who would normally produce the passing certificate, to the buyer. So I would recommend representing a buyer that we do probably put some money in escrow, just in case, smoke detectors do need to be replaced, or any wiring needs to be done, or anything like that. That way that the buyer will be protected after closing. They'll have to have it done 90 days after the state of emergency is lifted. So they do have a little bit of time. And I'd also recommend just checking with your lender if you're going to have a mortgage. Certain lenders require different amounts held in escrow from the buyer, just to make sure that it's actually taken care of, and the lender's protected as well.
Frank, thank you. Frank, did you have anything you wanted to add about that?
Yeah, so certainly, yeah. If the smoke certification, if you can't acquire that from the town, then there is a holdback program for that. It's specific to each property in terms of the number of days and whatnot. So if that's something that is going to hold up a closing, we'll allow a holdback for that to get it done after the closing. And hopefully hopefully everything will open up soon and we won't have to deal with that. But yeah, there is policies in place for that.
Great. Thank you. I did have my last closing, which was in middle towards the end of February. I did have an issue getting my condo docs notary. And have you had that issue at all, Tim?
No, I haven't had an issue with the condo associations yet.
60s, sorry.
Of the 60. No, I mean, I just got one today. They seem to be doing all right. It might take a little longer, but they're still, operating, whether it's from their home, or I know a lot of the banks are doing notarization if needed.
That's great. I think that might have been like during the total lockdown where
Right.
banks weren't even open actually for my trustees to go and get it notarized. So, so it sounds like things are moving on, and to be able to get into a place by July 4th, that seems great. And I also know using your app, is there a safe way to send documents over through that?
Yeah, so we have this fantastic, we call it the phone app that, you can send to clients and I can send to clients, and it sort of, it's branded, sort of looks like this. And what clients can do is if they need to scan something to me, say a driver's license or a pay stub, and basically what they do is they just hit the scan button right here and it sends docs securely. And what they do is they just take a picture of the license or the document, and it uploads to their file safely and securely. And it's another great use of technology that we can provide to clients, as well as if they want to upload from their computer, we have a online mortgage portal that's safe and secure as well.
That's great. That's amazing. I think that's definitely a different thing that we offer, as well as when your ability to go to different banks. Is that something that you want to talk about? Why it's better to go with a mortgage person like yourself than one institution?
So yeah, we're what's called a correspondent lender, which means we have William Ravis Mortgage Company. We have our own underwriters and our own processors and closers, but we also correspond with about 25 other banks and financial institutions, local and national. So what I'm able to do is I'm able to take a borrower's scenario, whether it's a jumbo loan, it's a first-time buyer, FHA, whatever the scenario might be, and shop that, among 20, 25 different lenders to find the best, the lowest interest rates and the best loan program to fit in their scenario. So it's great for us to have that option. One-stop shopping.
That brings me to something else I heard. I heard a rumor that rates are very low right now, but maybe only for borrowers with good credit. Is that true?
Yeah, so we are seeing that with COVID-19. A lot of the banks and the investors are obviously, everyone's a little concerned that a borrower could lose their job or not be able to pay the loan back. So we are seeing historically low rates, for as long back as you can look, for borrowers with good credit. And by good credit, we mean like a 720, 740, 760 credit score. The highest FICO score is 850. So if you're in the 700s, 800s, you're going to see very, very good rates. Now, if a borrower doesn't have as good of a credit score, maybe in the 600s, then obviously their rate is not going to be as good. So, us in this industry have always talked to people about protecting their credit, trying to have good credit. And it's more important than ever during COVID. Now, if you're in the 600s for a credit score, you'll still get a mortgage. The rate won't be as good as if you're, say a 760. But again, that's always been the case. It's just that the spread is a little higher now due to COVID. And then, when this passes, we'll see some of the guidelines change and some of the programs that may have been taken away come back as well.
Great. Thank you. And that brings me to my next question for Tim is, how is your firm handling closings during the pandemic?
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely been interesting. We do have a few different options. We'll close in the office if the client's comfortable with that, wearing masks, gloves. We have a large conference room. We've removed about half of the chairs so everyone can really space out. I've done some refinancing in people's homes if they're more comfortable with me doing it that way. We've also set up a large tent outside the building here in Orleans. So if the client would prefer that, we'll do that as well. As part of the executive order from Charlie Baker, he did authorize virtual notarization. So we can do that if needed. Both parties, the attorney and the borrower, have to be located in Massachusetts. And so this is valid up to 3 days until after the state of emergency is lifted. So we have some time on that. It requires one Zoom conference during the signing, showing the ID just over the Zoom. Then they'll overnight the documents to our office, and we'll do another Zoom, just confirming this is what they meant to sign, and then we'll notarize at that point. So it requires us to keep the recordings of the Zoom here on file for up to 10 years, just to make sure if anything comes up. And another thing, I mean, the registry is closed right now, but they're allowing us to record online if needed, so that hasn't slowed anything up at all either.
Thanks, Tim. Frank, did you want to talk about mortgage rates?
Yeah, so mortgage rates are near their historic lows, and again, I'm just quoting rates in general, no points. For a borrower with a good down payment, 10 to 20%, and good credit. But we're seeing rates in the low threes for a 30-year fixed rate, which is phenomenal. To be at 3% or 3 1/8 or 3 1/4 on a 30-year fixed. What it does is it does a couple of things. It increases the borrower's purchasing power because you can afford more home at a rate of say 3 1/4 than you can at 4 1/2. The rates were 4 1/2, roughly 18 months ago. And that helps. And we're also seeing that a 15-year loan with good credit is in the 2s. So you'd be in the mid to high 2s on a 15-year mortgage. So people are excited about that. It's anyone's guess what's going to happen with rates, but they're supposed to remain steady for our delayed spring market and our current summer market that we're heading into here on Cape Cod. As well as if somebody does have an existing mortgage and it has a 4 on it, I always tell them, let's take a look at it. We might be able to refinance you and save you some money per month. It's been helpful for us to have refinances, and we're seeing that pent-up demand for purchases come online as well.
I do have a question, and it was about getting a mortgage for a second home. What's different about that? And maybe the percentage rates, because I think people assume it has to be 20% down.
Yeah, so at our company, our mortgage rates are the same for a primary residence as they are for a second home. So there's no difference, which is great news. And that's, like I said, I was quoting, rates in the low threes for that. Mm-hmm. So that'll help people. If someone is going to rent out a property, then that would be considered an investment property, which technically is classified as a little more risky to the bank. So that rate would be higher as an investment. So if somebody does want to purchase a second home, they can do that. They'll have a nice low rate in front of them if they have the good credit scores, and they can put as little as 10% down. So they don't need to have 20% down. They could come in with as little as 10% down on a second home, vacation home, which a lot of people aren't aware of.
Thank you. I think that answers that question. Well, I have another question. Is now a good time to buy on Cape Cod? And I would say yes, because you can do it from your armchair pretty much. And as Frank said, the rates are pretty low, almost at their lowest, and they're the same for second home purchases. What are the more, and how has getting to the closing changed? And I think you pretty much answered that question. Was there anything, Tim, that you think you might want to add to that?
No, not really. I mean, just that, it is a little bit more difficult right now, but everything's still moving forward, and, we haven't had anything that's stopped a closing or prevented one from moving forward. So if, someone's looking to buy right now, we can definitely still make it happen.
Which I find amazing. I mean, good job.
Right.
To both your industries. I think we've all adapted pretty well. So if you've been thinking about moving to Cape Cod, now's the time. It's beautiful. The summer's coming and the trees are in full bloom. The flowers are out and our beaches are open. So I'm going to share the screen to see if anybody else has any questions. They can email us directly. I'll put that up there for just a minute. And
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so
Enjoy
much.
being here.
bye-bye.
Okay, take care.
You too.